Hello, today we are going to be replacing the original high-speed steel cutter head with a Sheartak Spiral Carbide Cutter Head.
First, we need to remove the guide bar. Easy enough. And now we have to get to the drive belt and remove the drive belt of the jointer. There's just two screws on the little cap here. Cap comes off, exposes the drive belts for both the jointer and for the planer. You just simply roll it off. Now we have that belt off. Now we have to take the jointer assembly itself off, and there are 7 bolts, I believe, that hold it on. So there's 4 underneath here, there's 2 on the outside here, and another one under here. So I will get the wrench and start in on that. The bolts are all 17 millimeters. You'll be able to get to some with a ratchet, but with others you'll have to use an open-end wrench. So remember, when taking this thing off, this assembly is cast iron. It's heavy. And there's a pin here that they use on this side for alignment. So when you take it off, you have to remember that pin is there. So let's swing this one down. Pull that down, go down there. Here's that pin that I was talking about for alignment. And then just take off the last bolt over here. Well, I have just received my new cutter head from Sheartak, and I must say it's a thing of beauty. Of course, there's the old cutter head down below and the new one up above. And I will say that Mike with Sheartak has just been wonderful, extremely responsive, very, very helpful. So any questions or anything else, you'll find him to be very, very responsive. So let's see about putting this new cutter head in. Pretty simple. You just have to get to these 4 bolts initially, which means pulling off this plate here, pulling off the stop block. So let's start with that. And when you pull off this little locking mechanism, there are 2 little tiny pins behind it which will come loose, and they're easy to lose. So just be careful. Here they are, this little pin, these 2 little pins. Then we have to take off the little stop block itself. Now, this is a left-handed thread. I've already loosened it. 13 millimeter lock washer and a regular washer. You might need to use a puller. I've already taken the key off, or rather I have not taken the key off. This is another little pin that it will become loose that acts as a key, and it is smaller than the other 2 that we just pulled, so don't get them mixed up. There it is. And then, to make it easier, I've already loosened this 13 millimeter bolt here. Take off the guard. Then we loosen these 4 screws here. For now, I'm just going to break them loose. And then we go to the other side, where we're going to have to pull the pulley, and then afterwards we'll pull this whole thing this direction. So we're on the other side now, and again we're going to have to pull this little pulley and take off the cover plate. I've already taken off the 13 millimeter nut, lock washer, and washer, and pulled the key. You might need a puller to break this free. And just take off the cover plate. there's a little spacer here. And by the way, there's a spacer on the other side which I neglected to pull off, which I'll get to in just a moment. So now we have to remove the 4 screws that are holding the bearing on this side. Once we remove these 4 screws, we will tap the cutter head from the other side. We'll have to remove that bearing from its race. There's that spacer I mentioned. Okay, there we are. Let's go to the other side and see if we can't tap this bearings out. I suppose I could make a special tool, drill out a hole, and then match the diameter of my little wood block to the bearing. But I think in this case, just putting on the nut and then just tapping out, and we'll see if it'll start coming loose. And it is. And I forgot to mention that I usually, when trying to pull bearings out of their races, I use a little bit of Aerocoil or any other kind of release agent that you might have. There we go. So what I've done here is I've laid out all the parts, how they go together in order onto the cutter head. And one thing to remember is this nut over here, that's a left-hand thread and nut. Another thing to remember or to try is to make sure that this little pin will go into this hole over here. And I fitted it to try and see if it would go deep enough, and it doesn't go quite deep enough to allow the stop block to slide on. And so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to drill out this hole just a little bit. And on the other side, I checked out the key. And the key here is, again, just a little bit proud for this slot here. I might be able to press it in really hard, and I will try that first. But if not, I'm going to have to take a little tiny bit off of this key so it'll fit into that slot. There are any number of ways to take a little tiny bit of metal off of the key. Me, I just put it in this vice grip, and I take a regular file and just slowly file away this tiny amount that's needed so that it will fit in the slot. So it only took about 20 strokes with the file, and now it fits perfectly. So I find a 1/8 inch drill bit will fit. I suspect that perhaps this is actually a metric, but the 1/8 seems to fit very well, and it's not going to take much to drill this out. It's only a very small amount, so don't take a lot out if you find that you need a little bit more. See if that's enough. Yep, that'll do it. So the next step is to put the bearing into the race here, and of course it's an interference fit, so you're going to have to tap it in with a block of wood and a hammer. I like to put just a little bit of silicone in to ease it. Don't absolutely have to do that, but I just find it's a little bit easier. You just tap it in with your hammer. By the way, these are new bearings. Sheartak allowed me, or gave me, 2 new bearings, which was very nice. They came with the cutter head. That's done. Now we need to put the bearings on the shafts of the cutter head. I'm going to start with the big bearing first, and again, just put a little bit of silicone, or a lot in that case. And that will hopefully ease that. I have a hole in here that I use this hole for my clamps. It works very well for holding the cutter head upright. Now what I've done is I've drilled a block of wood, a couple of blocks of wood with holes in them that will fit right over. Now we need the next one. that was a very tight fit. I actually had to go to a penetrating oil to make sure that I got the bearing all the way down against the shoulder. Now we have to do the other side. And this time I'll start with a little bit of penetrating oil instead of just silicone. Get my blocks, we'll start tapping again. Now this side appears to be going on much easier. It's slid on fairly easy. Yep, there it goes. Second block. Okay, both bearings are seated on the cutter block. Okay, now let's fit the cutter head through. And I've already put a little bit of penetrating oil on the outside of this bearing and also on its race. Hopefully that will tap in a lot easier. Okay. Throw both of those on. Start tapping away. And it's going in pretty easily. You have to remember you're going to have to line this guy up so that it goes in properly as well. So pay attention to that as you're tapping. Okay, we're close. Okay, there we go. All good. Now reassembling this side, easy enough. 4 round head screws and 1 flat head. The flat head, of course, goes in the recess here. Now putting the rest of this together, very simple. The spacer goes on right here. And again, like I say, you had that little tiny pin for holding the stop block. Again, the stop block is no longer functional. That was only used for sharpening or setting the straight knives. But we want to be able to put on our washer, lock washer, and nut. Remember, this is a left-handed thread on this side. Now, there's no need to put on the locking mechanism because, again, that's only used for the straight blades. You'll never need it for this cutter head, so I'm just going to leave it off. And, of course, just put on the little cap for safety, and we're done on this side. I'm moving to the other side. Time to reassemble the other side. First, the retainer plate. Very simple, of course. Spacer, and then of course you have to get the pulley with the key. Remember, we worked that down so it'll go on, and just the washer, lock washer, and 13mm nut. And once we have all that on, we're ready to try and put the whole unit back on the main unit. By the way, I checked the tolerances to see how close we were, and I put a feeler gauge in between here and the bed, and it was 3/1000, so Sheartak got it really, really close. So now we're going to put the jointer assembly back onto the main unit, and the most difficult part of this is getting the belt onto both pulleys. And this is a new belt. You can buy them, oh, I don't know, I think this one's about $20. OEM belts you can still get, but they're about $50. And as far as I can tell, they're about the same. But in order to do this, you have to put this belt on here first. And that's where this little pin comes in. This little pin goes in right here. I happen to have a transmission jack, and it's just helping me because I don't have a helper. This thing's heavy. It's about 50 pounds is my guess. So what you have to do is you have to grab this whole unit. You have to place it into the pulley, into this belt, and then put it onto the pin. And once you have that there, you have to be ready with some bolts to attach it. Let's see how this works. Okay, let's try it. Place the belt onto the pulley first, set the pin, and then try and get this bolt set so that nothing falls on us. All right, pulley first, pin second. Come on. There we go. You might have to push this down to get the bolt in. There we go. Okay, it's not going to fall off on us now. But you notice these two surfaces don't line up. And that could fool you. You have to push it down to get to line up the holes. So now I just put in the rest of the bolts. So there are a total of 7 bolts, 2 of which you can get from this side, and the other 5 you have to get down underneath and put them in. All 17 millimeter. Now that that is all attached, the only thing left, of course, is the belt guard, the cover for the cutter head, and then of course putting the guide rail back on. And you're finished. Here's the completed product with the guide on, cover on, and ready to go.
Special thanks to Gary Riedenbacher for shooting this amazing video. We believe it will be very helpful to you. If you like our video, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.